Ladies and gentlemen, today is that day that the Lord has made. I have decided that we are going to be making a video on why I had a C-section after a vaginal delivery. If you're just seeing my face for the first time, my name is Ebere Chikezie. I am a mom to 2 children and I'm currently pregnant with my 3rd child. I'm going to be showing you what my bump looks like today at the moment with this 3rd pregnancy. I am currently, let's check. I'm currently 25 weeks gone, and so far so good. We're thriving. I am trying to make sure I'm doing my best this time around. Everything I'm doing is very intentional. My multivitamins I'm not missing for 1 day. I'm trying my best not to snack at midnight, but there is something during pregnancy. It's very hard to not eat what you feel like eating. On a normal day you might want to eat healthy. Probably you ate so much cake yesterday and then today you'll decide to eat clean, you know. But that's not the case with being pregnant. I eat whatever it is I want to eat, but I just try to to get active. Portion control is not my portion. It doesn't work for me. I am hardly able to discipline myself enough while I'm pregnant. So in a nutshell, all I'm saying is I am just trying the much I can, but making sure I do not snack at midnight, and then trying to stay active at least 500 jumps a day in order to cut down or utilize the calories I've consumed, because girl, I eat like a cow, literally. Okay, let me show you guys what my tummy is currently looking like now at 25 weeks. So here is what my tummy currently looks like at 25 weeks, and down here is my C-section scar. Let us avoid TMI. I'm not showing you much of what my C-section line or scar looks like, but it's just down here, from here to here is how much it is. And then this is a front view, side view, and other side view. Let's continue. So onto the reason why I had to be rushed for an emergency C-section for my 2nd birth. I had my 1st child sometime in 2017, and you know, it was a very long labor, almost more than, I think it was about 20, almost 30 hours, you know, labor before this child came in. I went through induction. It was like my body didn't understand what was going on. My body wasn't ready to get this baby out. Let's just say my body didn't know what to do, because that was my 1st child. Despite the induction, despite everything, bouncing on the board, doing everything to bring this child forth, plus at that time I was past my due date. I was like, I think 7 days past my due date, and I had preeclampsia towards the end of the pregnancy with my 1st child. I just attended my last antenatal. The midwife had to tell me, you know what, don't even go back home, just head straight to the hospital from here. So cut long story short, after all of the induction to get me to go into labor, nothing was happening. The breaking point was when one of the doctors came to announce to me that, you know what, if after 2 hours nothing happens, like you do not dilate further than 2 centimeters, well, it was 2 centimeters at some point, then it graduated to 4 centimeters and it was stopped there. We were just there, nothing was, no progress. So the woman said, young lady, if there isn't any progress, if nothing is going on further from here, because if we have to keep you longer, you know, in this labor, the baby will go into distress, because at that time the baby's heartbeat was beginning to drop due to stress. You know, very long labor. I myself was super exhausted. They might have to rush me for an emergency C-section, and I dropped down, like I broke down. Why was I, you know, in what scattered? Look, what broke me was the fact that if I had gone straight up for a C-section from the onset, that's fine. I would have had a made-up mind from the onset that this is what I'm going for. But the fact that I had, it's more about the mindset. I was already ready for a vaginal delivery, and then after all of the stress I've gone through, after the insertion of hands, every doctor comes in, check all of the checks. I was already in pain, I was exhausted, gone through the induction. They get to insert something in, you know, up there to get your uterus dilated, and It's super painful, I tell you. So after going through all of that pains, we're gonna keep that somewhere, and then I will still have to go have surgery. After the doctor said what she said and walked away, I finished shedding my tears. I was left by myself. I was thinking, trying to make up my mind that, you know what, I'm tired, I'm exhausted, whatever the case may be, so be it. Then one of the male doctors came back after, you know, the hours they said, and then he inserted his hands up there, and then voila, he said, here's the baby's head. Ha! God, that was the best news I had. I'm like, are you for real? Let's get it done already. So he called on to other nurses around, the midwives around, I think nurses, the ones who are supposed to help birth my baby, and then he said, get things ready, the baby's head is here. And then that was how I had my first child. So fast forward to 2019, when I was pregnant with my second and having my second child. Given that I had a vaginal delivery with my first child, I was very confident that, you know what, this time around we're killing it, you know, we're going straight up and we're having this baby, you know, on the day. This was my thoughts all the while through the pregnancy as it progressed to the 3rd trimester. But I tell you, I was shook. Towards the end of this pregnancy, say at about 37 weeks, no, as at, you know, during here in the UK and in most civilized countries, I think this should be the procedure in many countries that have good hospitals and medical system. They get to check you and check your baby through your pregnancy. They get to check the baby position, the placenta, the baby's organs, and how things are developing generally. So towards the end of my 3rd trimester, as I said, with this second child, they got to notice that my placenta was just very close to my cervix, where the baby's head is supposed to pass through during vaginal delivery. And I asked, what does that mean? They said, for the fact that your placenta is so close to your cervix, towards, you know, very close to the opening of your cervix, it's going to happen to be that if you go into labor, the very high chances that you're going to bleed, not minimal bleeding, you're going to really bleed. And we can tell that bleeding is not a joke during pregnancy. It's dangerous for both the mother and the child, and especially for the mom. So I was like, okay, so what are we talking about now? They said, let's see how it goes. If by your next scan, that should be 38-week scan, let's see if things progress, if the placenta was going to move up to a better position. And according to that doctor, he said he actually doubts, because usually if the placenta was supposed to be in any position other than where it currently was, it should have happened like way before now. I said, okay, let's still keep our fingers crossed, but let me know what is it, what does it mean for us if things be as is till, you know, the 38th week. They said that I'll have to be rushed for an emergency C-section. I said, what? This was just the thought that flashed through my head. When we were growing up, it is said that if you happen to have your first child vaginally, 100% guaranteed you're having all of your children vaginally. You're never ever gonna have to experience surgery. And I'm like, okay, this is most of the reason why most of we women hold on to wanting to have a vaginal delivery. Plus, having your baby come out naturally, as they say, your recovery is quicker. You know, once the baby is out, you're fine. You can pick up your baby. You can even do a photo shoot the next minute or next 1 hour, and everything is fine. You can just go home. But with a C-section, as that's how I knew then, I heard these women say that it's usually very painful, the delivery. And I read up also that the recovery is slower. You're in pain for months. You have a scar. Most of them say your tummy never goes down. Like my mom used to say then that when you see women with very big tummies, because they had children via C-section, and that was something I really dreaded. Look, I don't want to be pushing no big tummy when there is no baby inside, you know what I'm saying? So I'm like, hey, is this going to be my new life now? I told my parents, and everybody was praying, don't worry, it's not your portion. I said, you know what, it's not about prayers. If this is what it's going to be, if this is how it is, that I'm gonna have to have my child safe and sound, then so be it. So I prepared my mind for this emergency C-section if, as they said, the placenta does not shift away. It's called, by the way, placenta previa. There is the complete or absolute placenta, complete placenta previa, and that happens to be in a situation where the placenta completely covers the opening of your uterus. That's where the baby is supposed to pass through. And then there's a partial one. So mine was the partial one, where the placenta was close to the opening of my cervix. So it definitely would be an obstruction for the baby's head when passing through. You understand? I asked them that what is the reason why, what's the cause for the placenta previa, why is my placenta not in good position? And then they said probably at times it could be because not been too long you had a baby, or probably no known cause. Every pregnancy, as they say, is just different. The 38th week came, and then I went for the next scan to see if things had progressed, but no, things were still where it was. And they had to tell me, young lady, I'm afraid you just have to submit yourself for surgery. So they said that they will not let me carry on to the due date. I'll have to have this baby on the 39th week. Reason being that if they allow me to progress to the 40th week, that's the last week of pregnancy, I likely could go into labor, and that's what they're trying to avoid me being in a very terrible situation of, because if the baby begins to push down, I'll be bleeding. I said no problem. So the very day came, it was the St. Thomas's Hospital. I was very excited to be having my baby in such a reputable, huge hospital, and I felt very confident that things will go down fine. I went to theater. You have a epidural set up at your back. Under your chest down is supposed to be numb. So while the epidural was going on, there's this spray they spray in your body to ask you if you can feel anything. The whole idea is to confirm when you are numb. They will not want to tear you open and then you get to feel the pain. So they kept spraying things on my body. I said yes, I can feel it, and every time I said I can feel it, they knew okay, we're not anywhere near. So they had to keep pumping more and more epidural until they kept spraying, and they were able to establish that I could feel nothing under my chest down. Then it's time for the surgery. While I was lying down there, I was fully awake. They've covered up everywhere. The doctors were all in place, left and right, lights. Okay. I started feeling like, what's going on here? What was strong in my mind and bracing me up, putting me all together, is that my baby has to come out healthy and strong. We need to be fine. And at the back of my head, my mind was telling me that these people are about to tear me open. All of these people gathered here, that is the mission. They've torn me open, I can imagine. The near-death situation for me was when I began to feel the thugging, the pushing, the pulling. Because prior to now, that's when I was having this C-section, I'd already watched several videos of how they get to bring babies out of the tummy, out of the womb, and I get to see how they pull. If you haven't seen this video, go see it so you know what I'm talking about. How they get to pull the skin on your tummy apart. They're pulling every layer of skin down to your uterus. No words to explain. Like, as you see me, so I'm short of words. That's how these people kept pulling me. The bed was shaking, left, right, front, back. I wasn't feeling the pain, no, but the motion. But first, I skipped something before we got to the pulling part. After they all gathered and the cloth was closed, I sensed that they were about to start. The first thing I began to hear, I give you an example. You see this hose they use in washing cars? When it's really when the water is really pumping on full force, that was the sound I began to hear. So I just began to hear this sound. I could calculate that this is my blood. This is coming from my tummy. This is coming from me. I've been torn open, and then this is some outburst of blood from my skin being ripped open. God, look, my heart sank. The only thing that livened up and took up my spirit again was the sound of my baby's voice. Oh, that was just it all. I mean, that was it all for me. It took my mind away from all of what was going on. I was like, my child is here. I had him. It was so fast. I tell you, within 5 minutes the baby was out, and then they brought him out and then kept him on my chest for the first, you know, mother-child skin-to-skin contact, and then I held on to my child, and then they took him away eventually to clean him up and all, and then they continued, you know, stitching me up, just thinking that you know, I'm just some experiment on a table. It's cringing, I tell ya. So I got closed up and then was wheeled to the recovery room, where they eventually brought my baby to me, and then I was trying to get him to latch on, breastfeeding and all that stuff. Then I wasn't feeling nothing yet because my entire body was still numb, you know, and the numbness, as they said, will begin to wear out gradually. So they come in at intervals to come ask me if I'm beginning to feel my body. Can you feel your legs? Am I, you know, can I move my legs now? Because, you know, due to the epidural and every other thing they did to my body, I couldn't move my legs. Everything was literally stiff from under my chest down. I couldn't feel nothing. Even if you touch me or hit me with a stick, I wouldn't notice. So eventually the whole epidural weared out and I could feel myself. That was when I began to know that, okay, something happened down there. My entire tummy, it was like it wasn't mine anymore. The pains, every movement is done on the wheelchair. If you have your child vaginally, you get to leave the hospital quicker, but when it's a C-section, you get to stay longer, so they get to check up on you and see if you're fit to go home. You should be able to pass urine, you should be able to pass poo, and then for them to confirm that everything in your body, you know, is working normal before you can go home. It took about I think 24 hours before I was able to walk, at least move my legs. You know, it was, I tell you, the recovery, not be smart, you know, that's just from the hospital. And after about 3 to 4 days, I was discharged. I kid you not, the pain I experienced was on a daily basis. For over 6 weeks, I was in pain. It was difficult to bend, it's difficult to pick up anything, it's difficult to do. And that was my first time. It was my first experience because my first child was a vaginal delivery. So this was my first time experiencing this. It was like I just had a child for the first time. So this time around with my third child, I'm hoping to have a smooth vaginal delivery, all things being equal, you know. I'm very excited to share my experiences with you guys. If you liked the video, do well to click the like button, subscribe, turn on your post notification bell, and I'll see you in the next one. Stay blessed, okay?